Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to the third and final day of LUMS Homecoming Festivities 2021. We haven't had much celebrations, much festivities in the last 1 year. Hopefully this year will be different, and I hope and I wish that all of you are safe and healthy. Today our session is Alumni on Alumni, a very interesting session. We have a globally recognized finance professional from NYC. We have a social entrepreneur working on educational inequity in Pakistan, and we have an award-winning computer scientist to join us, and we'll have a chat with them. We have Mr. Saleem Ahmad. Saleem Saab is the chairman, National Incubation Center, Lahore. Saleem Saab, thank you for your time. We have Ms. Khadija Bakhtiar. Khadija is the founder and CEO of Teach for Pakistan. Khadija, a very warm welcome to you. And we have Dr. Ihsan Ayyub Qazi, who's the chair of the Department of Computer Science at LUMS. So a very warm welcome to all of you and thank you for your time. As a sense of propriety, I think the lady should go first. So Khadija, you're going to be the first one. So my first question is, what is this Teach for Pakistan? What do you do and what inspired you to start this journey? And can it bring any real change in the landscape of Pakistan?
Thank you, Adeel, and thank you very much for hosting this and the many other exciting conversations that we've seen coming out of LUMS in the past few months. So Teach for Pakistan essentially provides our most talented young people across this nation the opportunity and support to get into a low-income community and teach for 2 years to develop their own leadership skills, but also, of course, to make a meaningful impact in the lives of the children who they're teaching. Why this program exists is interesting. I think when I was graduating LUMS, I was very much one of those naive people who were walking out with a degree in social sciences and thought that I'm going to change the world. And then when I hit the job market, I realized that there are not very many opportunities or platforms through which you can begin to change the world. You know, roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty and really get into it. And so I stumbled upon a program called Teach for America in the US when I was doing my master's in public policy. And then I just thought, oh my God, how incredible would it be if we could do something like this in Pakistan, where we could create this platform where our country's most passionate, inspired, talented young people could come and dedicate 2 years of their lives giving back, but also learning about what challenges look like for Pakistanis on the ground. And I think the hope is that in the long run, these are the people who can be fueling change for our inequitable systems at large for the rest of their lives. So these 2 years would be the first step in actually a path-changing journey for themselves. Ab change isse aayega ya nahi aayega, ye to I think it remains to be seen. We got to get enough young people, like a critical mass of them out there in our systems doing this work together with a shared vision, I think, to be able to see. So I'll catch up with you in 10, 15 years to tell you how it's going.
Please do that, and I hope it will. We are just a bit wary of the word change these days in the last few years, especially the Urdu version of the word change. You know, there's a connotation to that, but that's another debate. Saleem Saab, you know, all the documentaries that one sees on YouTube about hedge funds and equity and all of that, it's a very illustrious thing. So how can someone from Pakistan and LUMS get into, you know, an area which is so illustrious even in the US? What made you do it? How did you do it?
Don't believe any of the stuff that you see on Hollywood. So I would put that aside. It's basically far less fun and attractive it might seem on the screen. I mean, it's 20-hour days. It's 7 days a week. It's a lot of slogging. I think you know, journey-wise, I think I've been fortunate that, you know, born and raised in Pakistan in Lahore, but having had excellent opportunities to sort of build a store of you know, skill sets that you know, LUMS does imbue its graduates with, it goes a long way, actually. I mean, you know, these values that LUMS imbues you, I think, stay with you for the rest of your lives. And, you know, of the many that that one can think of, I think the ones that stand out the most to me, that also help in every aspect of your professional career and personal lives, is this, you know, relentless pursuit of excellence. I think it's integrity beyond any doubt, like integrity of thought and action, you know, and then the spirit of goodness, you know, just trying to do the right thing. So, you know, people might see a dichotomy between objectives that are very sort of capitalistic seeming and commercial in nature, but these things are linked and intertwined in ways that manifest itself in achieving professional excellence as well. As far as the journey to the hedge fund world, I mean, honestly, when I graduated, I couldn't spell the word hedge fund. I had no idea what it meant, right? So basically got fortunate enough to land a job with Citibank in Pakistan, sought an area that nobody had worked in before, I suppose. I never thought. I mean, did infrastructure finance through Islamic financing transactions, so Lahore Islamabad motorway project, OGDC, big stuff. And every 3 years, I mean, I basically kept throwing myself in the deeper end on something that I had never done before. My family often thought that I was stupid, that things when they started getting easier for me and I started accelerating in my career, I just decided to do something completely different. I mean, so from there, I ended up going to Hong Kong, doing tech investment banking with Credit Suisse. I mean, this is tech 1.0 in the early days of, in the sort of late 90s, early 2000s. वहाँ से उठ के अमेरिका चले गए, न्यूयॉर्क में जाके फिर mergers and acquisitions किया. And I mean, I got to be honest, like as a brown boy, I mean, who's not going to hit the pub in the night, it's you got to keep the grit on. I mean, you've got to work harder than everybody else and become indispensable in ways that you continue to bring value to your team, to your firm, so that you become someone that they just couldn't do without. And fortunately, शुरू में होता था, honestly, I mean, I'm not kidding here, कि एक दिन जाते थे तो अगले दिन वापस आते थे, नीचे जिम में बिल्डिंग के जाके नहा के कपड़े बदल लिए, I mean, काम बहुत करना पड़ता है. So mergers acquisitions किया, उसके बाद शौक था कि advisory से principal side पे जाएं, principal meaning investing की तरफ जाएं, put your money where your mouth is. तो private equity में नौकरी मिल गई, वही Morgan Stanley में. और फिर वहाँ पे काफ़ी काम किया रियल एस्टेट में, रियल एस्टेट इन्वेस्टिंग. सो कहाँ टेक्नोलॉजी, बैंकिंग, कहाँ मर्जर्स एंड एक्विजिशंस एज अ जर्नलिस्ट, एकदम से फिर रियल एस्टेट का बंदा बन के आ गया. सो कांस्टेंट थीम वही थी कि हर 2-3 साल के बाद थ्रो योरसेल्फ इन अ डीप एंड and seek learning opportunities with a true mind, never worried about titles and money and all of those things. Alhamdulillah, that just kept coming anyways. But that was never my focus. Did that for like 3 saal again. Phir maine kaha ki yaar ye private equity tends to be a little bit more process oriented, transaction structuring, aur hota ye hai ki you may come up with a great brilliant idea that you want to execute, but somebody else overpays or transaction falls apart. So decided to jump ship to a hedge fund because that's where you have access to public markets and you're investing. Nobody stops you. The market is too large for you to be, any meaningful player that somebody can stop you from coming in or going out for the most part. And that also allowed me to start doing a lot more emerging markets work. So it brought me back to my core belief and desire to continue to give back to our societies, or those are fundamental to who I am as a person. So invested across emerging markets, including Pakistan in the public domain. Learned about Africa, Latin America, I mean, places that I'd never even been to, and broadened my skill set. वहाँ से निकल के फिर 3 साल बाद अपना hedge fund बनाया, लंदन चले गए, और फिर लंदन से मुझे एक और large institution JP Morgan ने ले आए अपने global investment asset management business में. फिर वहाँ पे दोबारा से hedge fund में काम करते करते ended up running global equities. So इस तरह से, I mean, the journey has been all over the place. In the middle, I ended up co-founding one of Pakistan's first venture capital fund in Lahore, called 47 Ventures, because I had a strong desire and belief in the Pakistani youth and realizing that youth dividend, you got to entool them with skills and capital to make it a reality. So that's just a long-winded journey, but a lot of nosebleeds, a lot of ups and downs, extreme amount of volatility, but never afraid to take a challenge and take it head on.
Wow, that's quite a journey. You'll forgive me if I tell you that the only line I picked up on was, "You didn't hit the pub in the evening." Wow, that's a long journey, but that's a sad journey. I'm just kidding with you. Dr. Ihsan, of all the things, of all the areas that you could have chosen, you chose academia. You chose to be an academic. Why did you do that? Is it a family thing? Typically, people who come from a family of teachers, they continue the tradition. या यही शौक था करने का? Tell us about your journey.
That's a very thoughtful question, Adeel. Adeel, I think first up, I have been very fortunate to have had a very supportive family. My parents have always sort of backed me in whatever I wanted to do in life. And I think the opportunities I got, I think I find myself to be very privileged studying at LUMS. I think at LUMS, I bumped into these amazing teachers, these mentors who were passionate about what they did. And I also realized the importance and power of inspiration. I realized that, you could take a course, interact with faculty, and it could change your life. It did for me. I took a course in networking. I was so inspired that I, decided to dig deeper, and that really became my calling. And I realized that was my true calling. So I think one is the power of inspiration that I realized that teachers have, and I could connect with that. Having served as teaching assistant while I was a LUMS undergrad, I realized, I liked helping others learn, myself learn. And I thought, what better thing to do? So this reminds me of just a quick anecdote. You mentioned about, family background and such like. Interestingly, my father was a bureaucrat, and once I asked him while I was doing my undergrad that, Dad, what's the best profession in your view? And he right away said it's teaching. And I was stunned. Here you have sort of a traditional very mindset of, what bureaucrats are and power and such like. But, I have been very inspired by my father, for his humility and his perspective and so on. And I think the second thing which really enriched me in manifest ways at LUMS was its broad-based curriculum. It really broadened my horizon. I could take courses in social science and humanities, many courses in economics and so on. And that really sort of, broadened my perspective. And then having such a diverse group of people around you that are there to inspire you in so many amazing ways. So I think those were the inspirations that led me to sort of, teaching and being an educator and making a contribution to that end, sort of, always keeping the perspective of the power of inspiration in mind, while going forward.
Great word. Inspiration is a great word. Great word. Khadija, we were just having a conversation yesterday, and I thought that in this country, in addition to other things, we think of education as a stepchild. We can say whatever we want, but we have never invested seriously in education on a public level. We've never had a vision for the country in terms of education. So when somebody starts, an initiative, they're hit with roadblocks, and they're hit with bureaucratic issues, and they're hit with enemies. So any roadblocks, any obstacles that you faced in this journey?
Yeah, I think बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं अदील. I think मैं अक्सर जब पाकिस्तान के बारे में सोचती हूँ तो लिप सर्विस हम इतनी पे करते हैं तालीम को, but we only ever do 3-year, 5-year planning when it comes to education. We don't set a vision for this is where we need our country to be in 50 years, and therefore this is where our education system needs to be in the next 30 years and 20 years and 15 years. And I think the biggest roadblock along the way of starting and building Teach for Pakistan has actually been exactly that mindset. It's very short-term thinking. Because जब आप short-term में सोचते हैं तो फिर आप सिर्फ मसाइल के जो सिम्टम्स हमें नजर आते हैं उनको हल करने की बात करते हैं. तो आप बहुत सारे काम देखेंगे जो टीचर ट्रेनिंग हो रही है या कुछ टेक्स्ट बुक्स कुछ बेहतर करने की कोशिश की जा रही है. बट जो हमारे फंडामेंटल मसाइल हैं, वो जो डीप स्ट्रक्चरल प्रॉब्लम्स हैं जिनकी वजह से आप देखते हैं ये पुअर लर्निंग आउटकम्स एक स्कूल के लेवल के ऊपर, वो कहीं और है, उनके बारे में एक डिफरेंट किस्म की सोच चाहिए और एक डिफरेंट अप्रोच चाहिए उसको हल करने के लिए. सो टीच फॉर पाकिस्तान जो करने की कोशिश कर रहा है वो we don't claim to do everything. We only claim to be producing the people who are going to be doing the thinking and the implementing that is going to drive change across these systems. But wo idea, I think, to create demand for that idea among government and also among our, the business sector, which we need support from to be able to run and grow this program, that's felt very difficult because people want to support what they can see, touch right now today. Right? So I think Pakistaniyon ko, it makes a lot of sense when you ask for मुझे इस बच्चे की तालीम के लिए इसकी यूनिफॉर्म के लिए पैसे चाहिए या इसकी मैंने 2000 रुपए की फीस है वो पे करनी है. दैट मेक्स सेंस टू पीपल. बट व्हेन यू टॉक टू देम अबाउट I'm developing the leadership of somebody who is, yes, an excellent leader in the classroom today and is working with 50 kids now, but is a future leader in the long run for education. It's a much more difficult idea, I think, to swallow. So uski wajah se I think bahut sare roadblocks. I've been laughed out of many offices where people have said this is naive. This A will not work. हमारा सिस्टम इतना खराब हो गया कि शायद ये यहाँ पे इस किस्म की जो एफर्ट है ये well intentioned है but चलेगी नहीं. And I think the added to that has been my age. When I started this अब तो मैं बुढ़ी हो गई हूँ, 10 साल हो गए हैं इस बात को, but when I started this program I was 26 and I think back then knocking on people's doors and saying trust me with your money and with your support, with your voice was a hard sell. But I think the thing that's kept it going is what have these young people been able to do when they've come into this program and then made dramatic growth with their kids in 2 years, and then what they've continued to do afterwards. Like I think many of them have completely turned around how the Citizens Foundation, the biggest nonprofit in the country with the most high impact nonprofit in the country, I think it's been many of our alumni are working there have been game changers for how they do their work. For the most exciting initiatives that have come out of the Punjab government or the Sindh government in the last decade, many of them have been led by Teach for Pakistan alumni. So I think I think जो mindset जो मेरे रास्ते में शायद आ रहा था वो यही लोग उसको ओवरकम कर रहे हैं. मैं अकेली तो नहीं कर सकती, यही लोग हैं जो proof points बन के उसको ओवरकम कर रहे हैं over time. So I think yeah, that's how we're moving forward.
Excellent. And Dr. Qazi gave a good word, inspiration or inspire. So just keep that in mind. That's a very powerful ailment. I call it an ailment, passion and inspiration. Did you just say that you were 26 10 years ago and you think that you're old? Is that what you said? All right. Okay. Don't go any further.
Sign off.
All right. So that makes me a dinosaur, but I'm happy being a dinosaur. Okay. Saleem, similar question. Obstacles and problems or roadblocks that you faced in your career, and most of the time when you face a roadblock, whatever that is, whether it's in finance or education or sports, whatever, I find that the approach to cross it is similar. People use similar words. कि मैंने इस तरह से roadblock cross किया था. So roadblocks could be completely different, but the attitudes are usually similar. So your roadblocks that you faced and how did you overcome them?
Look, I think obstacles, just like the ones in the gym, help you build resilience. So I might suck at building physical resilience and fitness. I think I was able to, alhamdulillah, continue to push against the obstacles that came my way in my professional and personal lives and did not deter me from continuing to push on. So I think, when you know in your heart of hearts that you are actually bringing value and you're honest about it, this whole aspect of integrity, I don't want to sound holier than, thou, but the reality is that you got to be true to yourself, what it is that you're bringing to the table, and you question that every single second. And I think it ties in with this whole hedge fund mentality as well. You're constantly evaluating what it is that what you do worth today, which is, for finance and accounting people, it's essentially, the future discounted value. So, you constantly keep challenging yourself to think, what it is that you bring to the table. Usme देखें, breaking into the world of, finance, mainstream Wall Street is not easy. And as a Pakistani who grown up in Pakistan and sort of come out, And many people have done it, and many people do it. Getting into like mainstream hedge fund business is like a small club where they enact a lot of barriers to entry for people who don't belong. And that was perhaps the challenge that kept me going and kept me excited. And I tried my best to earn my way in through delivering value. And look, at the end of the day, I mean, the life is about trade-offs, and it's a risk reward mentality. So the greater the risks, the greater the obstacles, the greater the rewards. And so you just have to be strategic about that. You have to be honest about the value that you bring. You have to overcome your weaknesses. You have to continuously be in the mindset of learning. And I think that humility to continue to learn, I still, every single day, my focus is always on learning something new. And knowing what you don't know is sometimes far more important than knowing what you know. So, continuously challenging yourself is really important.
All right. Resilience, a very good word. Resilience, another good word today. For whoever's watching, there's a great book called Grit by Angela something, a world famous book, Grit. Great book. And if people haven't read it, you should read it. Dr. Ihsan, your team, you and your team have won the prestigious Facebook Research Award, I think twice in a row, about fake news. मेरी अम्मा और मेरी खाला और मेरी सास तक ये बात नहीं पहुंची अब तक कि दुनिया में फेक न्यूज काफी है. So every single nonsense that they read, they pass on to me कि ये ध्यान करना, ये हो रहा है. And I'm like, Mom, stop watching Facebook stuff and stop watching all of that. But fake news has become, a significant part of our communication these days. So tell us about that research and how important it is in Pakistan, in the context of Pakistan today.
Sure, Adeel. So we started this research about a couple of years back, and this is joint work with Dr. Aisha Ali from the Department of Economics and Dr. Agha Ali Raza from Computer Science. And really, I mean, our inspiration of starting this work was, like you mentioned, we see such huge sort of spread of fake news around us, and it can affect people in manifest ways. I mean, increasing polarization, even to leading to even conflict and such like. And I think when we started looking at this problem, we said, what's especially unique about developing countries? And I think one of the very clear things that emerges is the lack of digital literacy that we see in developing countries in particular. So we started looking at how digitally literate are people. There's a growing social media users base in Pakistan and similar developing countries. And how are they consuming news? And do they understand, for example, what technology features are, and the source of information and so on? How do they determine the veracity of information that's presented to them and so on? And so I think we started looking at what kind of educational interventions can we have that are evidence-based, that can improve the informational well-being of individuals, especially in the low digital literacy context. So I think these Facebook awards have been geared towards that end, designing educational interventions that can really help people identify fake news that's presented to them through different formats and through different kinds of media. And I think we've learned a fair bit. I'll just share one example of that. So we ran a randomized control trial in the city of Lahore, where we looked at 1,000 households. And we tried two interventions. The first intervention was showing a video in the Urdu language, informing people about what is fake news, what are the consequences of fake news, and what are some common ways of identifying fake news. And we said, this should obviously have an impact. And interestingly, among the low digital literacy users we evaluated this design, it had no significant effect. The second intervention we tried was providing people with feedback. So we gave them a test, having fake news, true news, and placebo news, and we gave them feedback of how well they did. And this feedback intervention actually led to a substantial increase in the overall ability of individuals to identify news. And then so what we learned was, looking at the specific sample of users where there is low digital literacy, you need to design completely different interventions that can have an impact. And so I think really what we think is important is evidence-based sort of intervention design, which is really crucial, I think, in this context. So we are continuing our work now on deepfakes, which is a new technology through which you can emulate the voice and video of celebrities, influential people, and it can have such a lot of negative consequences, and that this really drives us to do a research in this space and have an impact.
Dr. Ihsan, that will be a long journey. जिस मुल्क में हम पेट की बीमारी का इलाज गंदे तावीज़ों से करते हैं, और जब किसी को बुखार या टीबी हो जाए तो उस पे को पानी पड़कर फूंक के उसको पिलाते हैं, उस मुल्क में एविडेंस बेस, that's going to be a very long journey, but we wish you all the best for that. You know, there's a joke in my family where when my mother or my khala says कि ऐसे ऐसे हुआ है, and I ask them, is there any evidence for that? And their response is, मैं कह तो रही हूँ. And I'm like, that's the evidence? That's your evidence? हाँ मैं कह रही हूँ, मुझ पे भरोसा नहीं है, तो I'm like, भरोसा is an evidence? But anyway, so we're a country devoid of evidence and scientific thinking, but wish you all the best. Khadija, a similar question to you. एक leadership काम है कि fake news identify हो, लोगों के mindset change हो. You mentioned in your last comment के, you know, let's say that there's a child in a class or a student in a class who clearly shows leadership qualities in a class of, let's say 50. My question to you would be, and there are so many books written on that, everybody has an opinion, and that's fine. What is leadership? So that's one. But here's another question, which is, in order to have a good or an effective leader, you also need to have conscientious followers. Nobody wants to be a bloody follower. Everybody wants to be a leader without the responsibility. Isn't being a follower also a good thing, a great thing?
I mean, and Adeel, I think मैं जो हमारे काम से जो मैंने सीखा है पिछले 10 साल में, वो ये है कि शायद ये जो particular हम इस paradigm को देखते हैं, this leader on the one hand and the follower on the other hand, perhaps this is not the only way to imagine what leadership can look like. And I think where I've seen examples of leadership really lead to some breakthroughs, it's always when leadership is collective. When the person who is supposedly in the leader's shoes, whether that's the teacher in the classroom, whether that's me as the CEO of an organization, whether that's one child who's leading their group in a group of 4 or 5 who are supposed to be working together, I think it always the way in which it works is when this person thinks of themselves not as the leader with a band of followers, but as somebody who is in a position to enable others to lead alongside him or her. And I think that is incredibly paradigm shifting, right? So मैं अगर आपको examples दूँ, COVID में हमने कैसे survive किया है? Teach for Pakistan fellows, I think, have perhaps been the only people, I shouldn't say the only because I don't know, but very rare case of educators who in low-income communities have continued to keep on teaching. And how has that been made possible? I think it's because they've been able to consider their kids who they're teaching and their parents and the other teachers in the school as people who have the potential to lead right alongside them. So the most incredible solutions that have come out is, for instance, community learning centers ban gaye, जहाँ पे ओपन एयर में वालिदैन ने मिलके जगह ढूंढी है, जिसमें उन्होंने जो जगह उन्होंने सिक्योर करके दी है फेलो को, या भाई आप यहाँ पढ़ाएं. माएँ साथ लग गई हैं कि जो सब्जेक्ट्स आप नहीं कवर कर सकते वो हम करेंगे. जो बच्चे नहीं आ सकते उनको हम कनेक्ट करेंगे ओवर Zoom while you're teaching in the classroom. कोई खाना लेके आ रहा है, कोई पानी लेके आ रहा है, to make sure that these classes continue to run. So I think in a case like that, for instance, अगर ये फेलो अपने आप को समझता है कि भाई मैं लीडर हूँ और मैंने इनको क्या इंस्ट्रक्शंस देनी है और इन्होंने मेरी बिडिंग करनी है, तो शायद इस तरह की ट्रेमेंडस चीज कभी भी ना बन पाती. वो सिर्फ तभी बन पाई है when they shared the problem back with the people जिनका वो मसला है, and trusted कि वो believe करेंगे कि उनका भी वही मसला है. उस बच्चे को भी तकलीफ हो रही है, उस पेरेंट को भी तकलीफ हो रही है कि बच्चे की पढ़ाई रुक गई है, and said to them कि अब ये हम सबका मसला है, आपका क्या ख्याल है, क्या करें. And I think my biggest lesson, honestly, in leadership out of this work has just been that leadership is always collective. And I think the other one is it's always patient. You know, एक पुरानी पोएम है या वो किसी कोई पता नहीं कहाँ से वो एक वर्स है जो मेरे दिमाग में से चल रही है. आप सब को शायद पता हो उसका reference, but love is patient, love is kind, वो कहते हैं. So I think मैंने तो यही सीखा है कि leadership is patient and leadership is kind, and it does not expect either change overnight or dividends overnight. And it continues to believe, it continues to stay inspired, as Ihsan was saying earlier.
Another great book that people should read is called Why Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. Great book on leadership. Why Leaders Eat Last. Great book, great book. And of course, there's a misconception, typically not in everyone, that leadership is actually sitting on a sofa and ordering people around. That's leadership. I'm the king and everybody's there to serve me. But it's exactly the opposite, where there's a role to be played. There's a role to be played. Saleem, there's one thing that I see and I cringe. So tell me I'm wrong, which is, you travel to the West and you see so many brands across the world in 100 countries, 150 countries, even Indian brands for that matter. And then in every city, in every major city, you see the McDonald's and Pizza Huts and KFCs and this, that, and the subways, this, that. Why don't we see Pakistani brands across the globe? We see Italian brands across the globe, German brands, Japanese brands, Chinese brands, American brands, British brands, Indian brands. Why don't we see Pakistani brands which are globally recognized? What's wrong with our entrepreneur? How can we change this ecosystem?
That's a very loaded question, and you're gonna, get me a lot of dislikes after this because, as I said, I'm generally quite unfiltered on my views. Look, I think there's some great success stories in Pakistan. I mean, if you think about it, brand proliferation in the Western world. There are these two kids who came out of tertiary cities in Punjab, and they're running a global footwear brand called Atoms now, for example, right? I mean, a beautiful story, great branding, whatnot, but it's obviously not at the scale of, hitting at the level where our sort of neighbors are. और उसकी वजह है, देखें, जब आपके दिमाग में एक sense of entitlement आ जाती है ना, it's a killer, right? It's a killer of your motivation, it's your initiative, it's your desire to learn. And I find that the most disturbing aspect in our country. That there is a certain amount of lethargy that comes along with that entitlement. That, my dad was the largest textile manufacturer at time of partition. I'm still going to continue to be top, amongst the top 5, and that's how the world is. And, that's how, and, what I'm going to do. As a result, what you've seen is, if there were an innovation index of what we produce, and if you even gauge it by the level of productivity and productivity growth in our country, it's lagged every other country in the world. I remember that, during LUMS and right after LUMS, there was a microfinance project that I worked on and had the fortune to go, work at Grameen Bank with Dr. Yunus at the time. And वहाँ पे मुझे वो किसी textile company में ले गए जो knitwear का काम करते थे. So the second largest knitwear exporter from the country was literally based out of अंदरून लाहौर शहर type के घरों में multiple levels पे ख़वातीन बैठी हैं प्लेटफॉर्म्स पे और अपनी सिलाई मशीनों के साथ और हाथ की मशीनों से knit कर रहे हैं, बना रहे हैं. उस ज़माने में पाकिस्तान के पास already computerized machines थी, right? And if you think about how that trajectory has been sort of dislodged or trajectories changed for Pakistan versus Bangladesh, it's remarkable. I mean, a country with no sort of raw material access or labor arbitrage opportunities and so on and so forth. Yes, some strategic thought from the part of the government in terms of ensuring availability and supply of electricity and at reasonable rates and things like that. But हम बहुत पीछे रह गए हैं. And I continue to see this. Now, इसको देखिए मसले को तो हैं, अब उसको मसले पे बात करते रहेंगे तो कोई फायदा नहीं है. Let's look ahead के what can we do? We continuously talk about Pakistan's youth dividend. We're one of the largest youthful populations in the world. We are an English-speaking nation. We get fairly good fundamental education, so we can play at the global footprint, global marketplace. Barring a handful of success stories, name others, right? And why is that? That's because this youth, unfortunately, is largely unskilled. So one of the advantages of being a global investor and having invested in Africa, in Southeast Asia and Latin America, is that I've seen countries not different to Pakistan, with issues of corruption, nepotism, all of the issues that you think of in Pakistan are probably 10 times worse in other countries. But how have they been able to transcend that? You see, हमने अपनी जो generation है ना उसको upskilling नहीं किया, उनकी technical upskilling नहीं किया. And we should be producing 80,000 to 100,000 coders a year. We produce 25,000 tech graduates. Of those, 10% are employable. 10%. और उनको भी लाके train करना पड़ता है और काम सिखाना पड़ता है. So that's the dichotomy, and this whole technological revolution can be the great equalizer for the rest of the world. Forget about the old industry ways of fixing our economic growth problems. It's not going to happen. It's going to take a very, very long time. It's going to take, Pakistan Misai industry, they love the word SRO, which is subsidies, right? कौन सी industry Pakistan में चलती है मुझे बताएं जो without a subsidy is making money, legally. So forget about it. ठीक है उसको चलाएं. It's an employment generator, but focus on building human skills, and human capital is what's going to change this country. So we should be running programs in our country which are not degree programs. I mean, degrees सबके पास हैं, learning किसी के पास नहीं है. Yeah, I'm making broad generalizations. Obviously, there are exceptions to it. And that's what we need to do to be able to, leapfrog our issues and sort of catch up with the rest of the world. और अभी भी late इतना नहीं है, अभी भी कर सकते हैं, right? सड़कें बनाने पे, technology parks बनाने पे बहुत focus होता है, अरबों dollars खर्च कर देते हैं हम लोग. ठीक है, वो भी ज़रूरी है, हमारे होना चाहिए. Pakistan's crossed 100 million broadband connections. We're not a small country, We should be pounding above our weight alongside that of, we're larger. Our broadband population is larger than maybe 220 countries in the world, right? So, I mean, I think that dividend has to be realized, and there's only one way to do it, is to upskill our youth.
I was reading somewhere, we are 1/5 in population of India, so we should be 1/5 in pretty much everything. And I was reading, could be incorrect, could be fake news, Dr. Ihsan, where India exports tech worth 136 billion, and our tech export is 1 billion. We're not, we're a fraction of what they export, technologically. So that's one. And what Khadija just mentioned earlier on, where, people give money for something which is tangible. They can see that the technology park is tangible, the road is tangible. You can physically see that. But human resource and skill, they're not tangible. So perhaps we don't see that. We don't have that vision. So I think vision is also an important word here, for the future. Dr. Ihsan, you're a research expert. There might be lots of people who are researchers or potential researchers who are watching. What would you tell the researchers? But let me broaden this question. जो आजकल के youth हैं, जिसमें मैं भी शामिल हूँ, I'm just kidding. Many people, when they're looking for something or researching on a very, very basic level on Google, here's what they do, or here's what we do, or here's what I do. I'm looking for some side effects of a drug. So I Google it, and the moment I get the first response, that's where my research ends. जो पहली website पे पहली बात लिखी हुई है, I'm done. And then, so is that an attitude? Is research an attitude? And how can we become better researchers? Not only professionally, also that, but also in our life. हमने बात की evidence-based. Evidence requires researching. It requires an attitude. So tell us more about how to do research on things in our daily lives, and also professionally, who wants to be a researcher.
Sure, Adeel. I think it is definitely an attitude which gets combined with many other things. I think, good research begins with questions, with curiosity, with having that curiosity in you to know more about something, and then making sure that you go deep enough in order to find what you're looking for. I think that's really the foundations of good research, beginning with a question and having the curiosity to explore. I mean, I'll just share some examples with you. In our research, when we work with students, it's highly fulfilling, activity. And I think one of the great things that I like about research is, one is that I tell my students, no one has good monopoly on good ideas. As long as you can think about things, go deep into things, and having the yearning for learning, you can do anything in life. And I think at one level, having that perspective that you can think about good ideas and you can and discover things as you go along is, I think that's very empowering. The other thing is having sort of the focus and then the discipline to really dig deep into things and uncover them in an intellectually honest manner. I think that is something that comes a lot through training over time. And that's what the research enterprise actually teaches us, how to be rigorous, how to make sure that we go deep into things and be intellectually honest about it. So that would be some thoughts in that regard.
ये तो दोनों बड़े मुश्किल लफ्ज़ हैं. एक तो इंटेलेक्ट हो, फिर आप ऑनेस्ट हो. Well, good luck with that. Good luck with that. And I think there's another thing where, you gotta love being wrong. You gotta love that as opposed to love being right. Because unless you accept that, it's so people have such strong opinions, and I teach that in one of my classes where, I tell them what dogma is, where, you guys present an opinion as a fact. Just make sure that it's an opinion and not a fact. All right, not a fact, because facts are stubborn things. Opinions are not. But anyway, that's another interesting debate. Khadija, what did LUMS teach you that perhaps you might not have learned in another university? You could have, but you may not have. Anything special about LUMS or your training that you had in LUMS that helped you professionally and personally to grow?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to sound a little bit repetitive because I think both Saleem and Ihsan were referring to this earlier. I think, what LUMS does, I think in some ways that's unique, is it sets your bar for excellence. And that is taught. I think it comes from exposure. It comes from being driven to do your best and being told repeatedly that this is not your best and it's not good enough. And so I think, and I say that in multiple ways. I remember I got to Berkeley, and it's a state school, but still it's one of the best. And I was expecting to be blown away when I walked into my first class. And I remember standing there being like, okay, you know what? My auditoriums at LUMS were like nicer in some ways. I remember sitting through my first class, and no disrespect to my professors, because I already kind of sucked at math, so it's not really their fault. But I remember sitting in that Cal 1 class and being like, you know what? I think I learned more out of my Cal 1 class at LUMS. What is happening here? How are my professors better in Pakistan than they were here? And so I think that was one of many, many moments in life where I've been able to see that what I got, the way that LUMS trained me to think about what does excellence look like in terms of what you deserve and what you need to give, was very, very unique. And some of my hardest moments at LUMS were, I was such a nerd, so some of my hardest moments in LUMS were like, Laila Bushra की class में B मिल गया, जिंदगी खत्म हो गई, because अभी तक social sciences course में B नहीं मिला था. So, but she looked at me with such a poker face. She's like, of course you deserve a B, and if you can do better, you should in the next paper. And being in Arfa Sayyada Zehra's class and her not making excuses. अगर आपने A levels में नहीं दी उर्दू, या आपने अगर उर्दू B ली थी, तो उसमें मेरी गलती नहीं है, आप मेरी क्लास में बैठे हैं, so you will deliver at the level that I expect. And so I think that bar has just वो एक कीड़ा बन गया फिर, और मेरी शायद वो मेरी टीम भी रोती है उससे, मैं जो फेलोज है मेरे साथ जो काम करते हैं वो रोते हैं उस पे, because उनको समझ नहीं आती कि मेरा कीड़ा कहाँ से आ रहा है. Why am I OCD even about when you're printing something on a letterhead, उसके margins कैसे होने चाहिए? So I think that to me, honestly, is one of the most important kind of skills that I took away from LUMS.
Excellent. And it is so important. It is so important to have so-called OCD about excellence. And we're such an enemy of excellence. Collectively, this nation is such an enemy of excellence. And excellence is an attitude. and I'm going to tell a story. We're among friends, so I can take some liberty here. So I went to the film school in the US, and it's my second day, and I'm taking a shot, and I'm an actor. So I step onto the mark and I say my lines, and my teacher says, "Mr. Hashmi, did you hit the mark?" And I was like 2 inches away. It's a huge set. And I said, "I almost got it right." And he was like awestruck. He said, "What do you mean almost? Go back and get it absolutely perfect." And I'm thinking, who the hell cares, man? And it was the first time I realized that it's an attitude. कि किसी को पता चले ना चले, but if you can reach perfection, so to speak, achieve the damn thing. And it was such a done thing there in a film school. And I think it's one thing that we need to teach kids. Excellence is a thing that you must attempt. Of course, you won't achieve it, but you must attempt. So well done for that. Saleem, what does this NICL do, and what's your vision for it in the next few years? How can it contribute, or what has it contributed so far?
So NIC is the National Incubation Center at LUMS. There's a network of these in 5 cities in Pakistan, funded by one of the government agencies called Ignite. LUMS manages 2 of the centers, effectively hands-on, the one at LUMS in Lahore, and then for training and governance and guidance and so on and so forth for Quetta. So quite an interesting mix there. The purpose and goal might be slightly different in my mind to what it may have been before. The way I view this is basically a 3-4 role, which is to inspire, to enable, and to facilitate problem solvers in Pakistan. And the simple words, but I think these are quite meaningful. And the inspiration comes from a whole host of places, like other startup founders, the capital providers, the successful people in the industry. The enabling part comes from our wonderful, distinguished LUMS faculty that rolls up the sleeves and helps them with upskilling with core skills. I mean, we recruit from these young people, who have some startup ideas from all over Pakistan. The reach is just fantastic. I mean, we have remote cities in Balochistan from where we're recruiting this talent, right? So un sabko level set karne ke liye, to bring the core skills up to a certain requisite level, they actually essentially get a mini MBA for free in a very sort of short form basis. And then the facilitation part, right? So how do we connect them with industry, with investors, with other people in there, who can be collaborators and people who can help them build the ideas that they have. From a vision perspective, what we've changed is that, this place, wonderful foundation set by, friends of mine, basically वो herd mentality हो जाती है पाकिस्तान में. जब एक चीज में करते हैं तो everybody wants to be the Uber of Pakistan, and everybody wants to be the food panda of Pakistan. So we miss the big picture. तो उस herd mentality को तोड़ने के लिए हम एक ये कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि we're making a concerted effort in 5 big high impact areas for Pakistan. That's agriculture, education, environment, financial inclusion, and healthcare. और उन 5 areas में what essentially my goal is to create a nexus or an intersection between the specialists from the industry, our academia, our academic resource pool generates a ton of excellent applied research, but it never sees the light of the day, and infuse it with talent. So ये जो young talent हमारा आ रहा है, ideas के ऊपर काम करना चाहते हैं, उनको हम उनके साथ align करना चाह रहे हैं. So for example, today we're running the Investor Summit, and you should maybe log in and check it out. It's absolutely gratifying, like the kind of in short span of time, the transformational journey they go through is just absolutely fantastic. So all of these 5 high impact areas for Pakistan also represent big commercial opportunities. So if they become successful commercially and become viable in Pakistan, then they will have the ability to continue to grow the business overseas as well. We're also leveraging our technology resource and network, again, to catapult that journey for them. So the focus is very much on, again, 5 or 6 key areas: artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, cloud SaaS, robotics and hardware equipment. I mean, we have startups who've come up with, dialysis machines to like other machines that are cost effective or parts for amputees and so on and so forth. And that's really the vision. I mean, look, it's clearly something that I'm deeply passionate about. I mean, it's 3 a.m. in New York, and I have 5 more hours of work to do with the NIC in Lahore. And this is over and above what I do in my day job, right? So you can't get out of bed to deliver that energy and passion unless you're really motivated and you see the potential, which I see it. But we're still long ways away. I think the same attributes that I've talked about before are missing. There is a certain sense of entitlement. I get really mad when people are complaining about a session starting at 8 in the morning and they want the free MBA session to start at 9:30 or not on weekends. Come on, man, get a grip. And so वो उसकी ज़रूरत है और दूसरी resilience की ज़रूरत है. I mean, failure is a great teacher. They need to fail again and again and again. And secondly, I hope the ecosystem, which is a word which is very sort of frivolously used in Pakistan, kind of coalesces its resources together to help each other. हमारे mentality, unfortunately, बहुत ज़्यादा वो कहते हैं ना 1.5 इंच की मस्जिद वाली है. And we don't see the bigger picture. I'd much rather have a smaller share of a bigger pie, because that bigger pie can far outsize your own little circle. So I'd stop there, but that's essentially what we're doing. I welcome you to check it out, niclahore.com, and there's a lot happening there.
I've had the good fortune of meeting and training some of these young people. They had a pitch, and I was asked to train them. And I was just completely blown away by their confidence and by their ideas and by their drive. So great prospect. Dr. Ihsan, similar question. Your vision for your department, the computer science department at LUMS, where is it headed, and how do you see it in the future, 5, 6, 10, 8, 20 years?
Sure, Adeel. I think from a departmental perspective, in general, I think we realize that the most important thing is to invest in faculty and students. So we go to great lengths to find good faculty who are motivated, driven, passionate about helping students. So that's one of the most important things we invest on, and we're very clear about that. And like I think Khadija and Saleem said, it's all about excellence. Trying to do the best you can, and always sort of aiming high in terms of discovering your own potential. So I think that's one of the most important things. The other thing is accessibility. I think if you look at from a broad perspective, I think LUMS has contributed tremendously, yet we only produce, let's say from a computer science perspective, about 150 to 200 graduates. And I think like Saleem was mentioning, if you look at Pakistan, we produce about 20 to 25,000 IT graduates every year. And really the issue is that of quality. We're not producing enough quality graduates that can have an impact at the national level. And I think we need to be creative here. One is, of course, to focus on quality. The other is to find creative ways to leverage the talent that exists in the country to benefit others, maybe through private-public partnerships, and sort of, taking from there on. I think there's a huge opportunity there. So I think that's one perspective. I also wanted to sort of, Adeel, go on a slightly different direction and share some sort of, personal life lessons that have really inspired me, and I think may help others in terms of their views about life. I think, 3 things that I would like to share quickly with anyone that's listening. These are things that I personally subscribe to. I've been inspired by them. So I think one thing that LUMS has taught me in many ways, my family, is that whatever you do in life, do with all your heart and soul. I mean, be very committed, immersed in it. And I think that is one piece of advice that I follow personally. I try to follow personally. And the other thing is to be a lifelong learner. I think making a commitment to be a lifelong learner. I think that's a great commitment to have. And like you've been mentioning about research, it's essentially about learning and having the humility to always be a student, and I always learn greatly from my students through their questions and comments, and having that humility. And third, I think not necessarily, not in order, not the least in order, but is having the perspective to contribute in the lives of others. I think we all are extremely privileged, and I think one consequence of that privilege should be to contribute in any way we can in the lives of others, whether it's through advice, whether it's through financial means or other. I think it can have such unbelievable impact, and I think we owe it to others in many ways. So I think these three pieces of advice I would share with others. And I'll
Excellent.
stop there.
Excellent. The humility was what an important word. Another thing that the society is devoid of collectively, humility. हर कोई जो है वो आसमान से उतरा हुआ है. चलो बहुत सारे लोग जो हैं वो आसमान से उतरे हैं. And there's a little thing मुझे बहुत पसंद है ये. And I tell my students who think that they're the cat's whiskers, and I tell them, the less I knew, the less I realized that the less I knew. But the more I knew, the more I realized that the less I knew. So no matter how much you know, you'll know less. Okay, last question, because Saleem has to go to bed. He hinted he has to go to bed before he wakes up again tomorrow morning in a few hours. Khadija, any one thing, or could be two or three actually, any one thing that you would tell a young upcoming entrepreneur or a professional who's just starting out in his or her career, what should they be looking at? What should they be doing? What quality should they have?
Just the one thing. I mean, I think goes a little bit back to what Saleem was saying earlier. I think accept कर लो अभी से कि कोई भी काम actually glamorous नहीं होता जिस तरह बाहर से बैठ के लगता है. And so जब वो glamour wear off करेगी, very much like when you fall in love and you think that feeling is going to last forever, and then when the initial high of that wears off,
and
that's
then
when
you get married. Then you get married.
Yeah, and then I think and then that really tests, what do you really care about now? Why are you in this work now? So I think I would say to young people who are trying to make a decision for their lives that doesn't look that's off the beaten path, that doesn't look like what everybody else is doing. I would just say, give yourself a little bit of time to figure out, why does this matter to you? What do you truly care about? And then fashion that work in that image.
Yes.
And that's all.
All right. Excellent. Saleem, same question. Khadija mentioned, you choose something when you're 20 or 18 or 22, something looks glamorous, and then suddenly at 24, it doesn't. And I'm one prime example. I'm sure so are you. I did my FSc in pre-medical. I did my undergrad in mathematics, stats, economics. I did my MBA in marketing and finance, and I did my master's in filmmaking. And I still don't know what I want to do. All right. And I'm not as young as Khadija is. So people change, and your ideas change. And Saleem, you've done the same. You kind of dabbled in so many ways. Anyway, so one thing, or could be two or three, that you would tell a young budding professional coming up in the 21st century, wanting to change the world, what would you tell them?
Look, I think you hit the nail on its head. An insatiable appetite for learning. Always kind of stretching yourself, beyond what you think you're comfortable with. I mean, it ties in with the other themes that we talked about before. Resilience. It's flexing your muscles, in a way that enables you to achieve a lot more and sort of gain superhuman power, so to speak. And then I think the most important thing, underlying all of this is integrity. Be truthful to yourself. Be truthful to the people you interact with, and just remember that you got to look yourself in the mirror, and you got to know whether what you've done is right. And I think ye cheezein ho to, I don't think there's any obstacle in life to anyone coming from any background or any country in the world.
Resilience, integrity, great words. Ihsan, same question. Any one thing? I know you mentioned a couple. Any one thing that you would tell a young budding entrepreneur, a professional, computer expert, sportsman, whoever.
I think, in my experience with students, one of the questions I get very frequently is, why should I become a better self of mine? Why should I work hard and such like? And I think what I offer them is that I tell them that, you know, I can share my perspective, but of course you need to find your own. So there is a quote by Paulo Coelho who said that when we strive to become better than we are, everything around us becomes better too. So I think, you know, when you invest in yourself, increase your capacity, you increase your capacity to contribute in the lives of others. So that's a personal motivation for me, you know, and I offer that to students as well. But of course, so I think finding why you care, what motivates you, what drives you is really at the center of all excellence that you eventually achieve. And I think, like Saleem said, like Khadija said, those are sort of wonderful points to take on from there. You know, finding your true motivations.
Wow, wow, most interesting. The eternal question, why? And if people who are watching, they haven't read this book, read the damn book. It's called Find Your Why. It's a great book. Or look it up on TED. There's a great TED talk on Find Your Why by Simon Sinek. It'll change your perspective. Khadija, Saleem, Dr. Ihsan, thank you so much for your time, for your ideas, and for inspiring so many people. Whoever's going to watch will be inspired. Thank you so much for everything, and God bless you. For those of you who are watching, please stay safe, please stay indoors, look after yourself, and keep working to build this country into a better country. Thank you, everyone. God bless you. Khudafez and Pakistan Zindabad.
Khudafez.
Thank you.